Hello, everybody. My name is Ken Richard, and I have gotten myself involved in another startup. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit tonight. The startup, we're having some challenges, as startups do. We're having a little bit of trouble. And I was trying to figure out what we need. It's an AI startup. We need data. We need participants. We need people willing to do this thing so we can collect the data, train the AI, and produce better results. Makes sense, right? But we're just not getting traction. We're not getting progress. We're not getting anywhere. It feels like we're spinning our wheels. And so my first thought was, I'm going to go to the beach or go to the park and reflect. I'm going to read some books. I'm going to think deeply. I'm going to study the problem. That just sounded like a whole lot of work. So my next idea was to ask ChatGPT, right? So I put some stuff into ChatGPT. It spewed out pages and pages of data. It looked like a lot of work. I didn't read it. It didn't feel real relevant, so I skipped that. So my third idea was to come out and talk to all the smart people here at Tech Lancaster. See if we can get some ideas. I want to get your opinion on this startup. What can we do? Where can we go? What are your thoughts? Okay? So the startup is called Okaya, and what we do is we have a mental health assessment tool built with AI technology. You talk to it, it collects facial features from video, it collects your voice tone, audio features, it looks at the transcript of how you answer a few questions. It takes all this data, extracts a bunch of features, runs them through a model, and spits out a depression score, and a fatigue score, and an overall score. The depression score correlates, hopefully it'll correlate when we get enough data, to what they call the PHQ-9, which is a depression screening. If you ever go to the doctor and they ask you 10 questions about ADHD or depression or whatever, those are kind of medically accepted protocols for determining and if you have depression, and there's a fatigue one. And so what we do is we have people take the survey, run our software, take the two separate results, run them through, and then we try to get the data to correlate by tweaking the model. It's kind of a standard way of doing things. Unfortunately, we're just not getting a lot of traction, not a lot of participation. And so it feels like we're kind of stuck. And so the question we'll start with for all of you is, if there's an AI that can ask you questions, help you identify your mental health, would you use that app? Knowing nothing else, just a quick survey. Hands, you would use it? Or maybe you'd be a little hesitant to use it based on what I've told you so far. All right, a lot of hesitancy. I do think this is something we see. Now let me ask you a follow-up question. What if your boss paid for it? More likely or less likely to use it? More likely? Okay. And so now we kind of get to the root of the problem, is we have this cool AI, it can do this neat thing, it can calculate scores, but somebody has to pay for it if we want to make this into a business instead of just a technology. And you're very hesitant to use it if your boss is paying for it. You're hesitant in the first place, but even more if your boss is paying for it. And so I want to dig into that a little bit and think about why. So the first thing that came to mind was anonymous surveys. Where's Rick? Oh, he's out there. There's Rick. Have you ever had raise of hands when we get through this, have you ever had an employee anonymous survey where you felt hesitant to tell the company what you really thought? Right? It's anonymous. Is it not anonymous? Well, it's tricky. I remember once I was the last person to fill out the survey, and my boss came to me and said, Ken, you didn't fill out the survey? And so I know I'm going to be the last row of the spreadsheet. He knows I'm going to be the last row of the spreadsheet. I'm not putting anything down. And so I can really understand that. But when it comes to mental health, we really don't want to get that mixed up with the office and with our work, and we're afraid of getting fired, or we're afraid of our coworkers finding out we're struggling. even though we all struggle and we all have challenges and nobody has a perfect day every day in a row, there's some hesitancy to share the data. I think the corporate side of it goes even deeper, because we placed a lot of trust in apps like 23andMe and Flow. Does anybody know the 23andMe story, right? They collected a lot of data. Everybody thought it was really cool. They went bankrupt, a pharmaceutical bought the data, and now all that data and all the protections and the restrictions kind of went away. OpenAI. I'm pretty sure there's an OpenAI lawsuit by the New York Times. And OpenAI says, here's what we're going to do with your data. Well, because of this lawsuit, they're compelled to do something else with the data, save it all, and give it to the New York Times lawyers for their discovery process. And so now we were promised that this was going to happen, something else is going to happen. Flow is a period tracking app, right? Very, private information, sensitive information. And they were caught giving their information to Google and to Facebook. And so over and over and over, we hear stories about companies where the trust is blown. And for me, I think that's one of the big reasons that people are going to be hesitant to share mental health data with an AI, share mental health data at work, right? And so at this point, I'm pretty discouraged, because here I am putting in many hours trying to build this system, trying to figure it out. Can we grow it into a business? Is this going to work? Is it not going to work? And it doesn't always feel very good. Has anyone else done startups? Some of you? So you probably know exactly what I mean. It can be a tough ride. And then all the hesitancy we have in this room, very smart people, kind of backs up that we may be having trouble. So what are we going to do? Let's flip the script here a little bit, and let's think about something else, right? Is your pilot, the guy flying your plane, would you want his boss to track his fatigue and depression? It's different, right? Your surgeon, maybe a nurse, maybe a firefighter, maybe a police officer. We all have struggles. The guys in the Air Force, they have a baby that keeps them up all night too. And then they got to go on an 18-hour mission and they got to fly. And so this to me is kind of interesting, because as individuals, all of us, almost everyone here said, I wouldn't use it. I don't want to give my data to the AI. And then we look at somebody else and we say, oh, maybe they should. Maybe it's good for them, but not for me. And I think this is a common thread with AI, because we all like to use ChatGPT. We all like the benefits. We like to use these tools that are going to help us do our jobs. And then, but don't train it on my data. I don't want my data in there. I just want everybody else's data in there. And so it creates just an interesting situation that I like to think about here. There's kind of this double standard of trust, a little bit of cognitive dissonance, right? I want the benefits of the system. I don't want to participate and have my data go into it. So I think that's just something for us all to think about. Let me ask some other questions. Is there anybody here who feels they have a coworker who could benefit from increased mental health awareness? Right? You know that guy. There's somebody that maybe they're not really aware of themselves. Maybe they could use a little bit of help. Really, there's only 2 people? I think there's more than that. All right, so again, it comes down to that, everybody else, but not me. And that's just something I've been thinking about. I don't have a good answer for it, but I've been thinking about a lot in terms of this project. And so where's the line, right? How can we develop useful, interesting AI systems that solve real problems? People have mental health struggles. You have a baby that keeps you up all night. You have a sick parent. You have a sick dog. And these things absolutely impact, your work life and your career and your professional life. Some jobs, who's married to like a nurse, is nurse spouse, right? Do they ever bring their stress home, right? And so if we think about how we can position this product and what it can be for, we can say something like, if you're stressed out at work, if you're bringing your stress home, then we can give you a system to help you build mental health awareness so that you can be a better partner at home, so that you can perform better at work, so you can do these different things. And so now we're kind of reframing the question a little bit around where the value is and why they want to use it, instead of just, you want to give it to an AI or not. And so can you think of people or yourself that could benefit from a system that helped them gain increased self-awareness around their mental health and possibly some tools to help them make improvements? Does that sound valuable? A couple more, all right. Very good. So now, I was going to kind of work through some exercise and just see what people thought, and if anybody had ideas on how to enhance the system or to gain trust. But then I also had another idea, because this is Tech Lancaster. You guys might want to know a little bit more how it works and what the tech is and how the models are trained and those sorts of things. So I'm going to give both options, and we can kind of go and do a little bit of QA, or we can talk a little bit more about how it works. Does anybody have thoughts? Let's see. Who wants the technical details? Oh, it's going to be half and half. Who wants to know, like, let's figure out how we can make this interesting for people?
Yeah, just don't share your tech specs too much.
I'm sorry?
Don't share too much of your tech specs.
Is he going to steal it?
You don't want me to get a hold of this.
Well, when I was planning the presentation and creating my slides and thinking about it, I told Josh not to record it. And then I posted on LinkedIn, and the CEO came to me and said, make sure you get it recorded so I can watch the video. And then I said, am I allowed to say whatever I want? He goes, yes, you can say whatever you want. So we're good.
What's the secret keys?
The secret keys, the password, AQ3, no. Yeah, good.
Kind of a question, maybe this will help kind of lead you on. Is AI involved in the question and answer process, or is it simply, are the questions and or part of a tree you're asking?
Great question. Do we want to talk about how it works? Okay, we'll talk about how it works. Yes?
Well, related to that, would more people be okay if it was a human interface getting the answers to these questions? Say,
You mean like Greg?
psychologist, psychiatrist, doing a video chat with you, and then they gather the data.
That's a
and
great
they do something.
That's a great question. Did you want to
Just probably
pile onto this, and then I'll talk a little
I
bit.
wanted to know more about the AI sandboxing,
Okay.
and I want to know more about the confidentiality with access to information at what levels,
All right.
whether it be the employer or the technology behind it.
Awesome.
This can lead until the intermission, but I know of a book, and I pulled up the Wikipedia page so you don't even have to do that with reading, and it's all about how to sell an idea.
Awesome. All right, well, let me talk a little bit about how it works. We'll get into the details. And so you sign into the app, and then there's a video interview. The video interview is driven by ChatGPT API on the back end. And so we give it a prompt. It asks you 3 or 4 questions. The first question is kind of stock. Well, the first prompt is like, here's the user's last conversation. Take that, and then start asking them new questions to pull out how they're doing, what their well-being is. It's standard prompt stuff, not that exciting. And as you're doing that, we have the webcam turned on, and we're recording audio, and we're transcribing that audio to text. The webcam, we don't transmit the video, but we use MediaPipe to capture facial landmarks. What a facial landmark is it can look at the video and it can tell your eyes are droopy, you blinked, you're moving left, you're moving right. So it takes like 500 different facial points, and then we can analyze those later. But anyway, we do the video, we capture the landmarks, capture the audio, we take all that data, we throw it up to the server, we make the user wait 3 minutes, and then as that's processing, we run it through the model. The model itself is not a traditional neural net, as we've seen in other cases, because our data is really low. And so we're using more of a heuristic model. And what you do with a heuristic model is we still do feature extraction. So blinks, we know droopy face, we know dropping pitch and voice, we know mumbling, and what I don't even know what all the 47 features are. And so we take all of that, and then we run it through what we call a KDE. And the KDE is basically a lot of fancy math that I don't understand that creates distributions. And so it can shape your data to whatever distribution you want. And so because we don't have a lot of data, we have to shape it. And a lot of the times, if anyone here really knows AI, they're going to say you're overfitting. And that's absolutely true. We're doing a lot of overfitting with this data to get it to match your distributions because the data, our data is small. So that's kind of how it works. For the privacy, well, of course it's private. We don't share your data with anybody. If you give consent, then one of our engineers can use your data and evaluate our prompts and things like that. But if you don't check the box, engineers aren't going to look at the data. You can choose to share it with your organization or not. You can say, this particular check-in, I don't want to share it. If you share it, we're only showing you the scores, not the features, not the transcript, not what you said, just kind of what the outputs are. And anonymous aggregate data, we don't show it about an individual. And we don't show data until there's like 10 participants. And so we're doing all the right things, but of course these guys were doing the right things too, and they said they were. So how do you, it almost doesn't matter what we're doing, there's so much distrust with AI and with corporate and things like that. We need to figure out how to build that trust. Yes?
So I work in product marketing for a company, and my question for you is, who is your target consumer? Like, who's your ideal customer? Because I'm hearing businesses and organizations and hearing individuals, and I don't quite understand what the benefit to me as an individual is. Like, assuming I have access to resources that we have access to now without AI, like, what problem does this solve?
Great question. So our first customer is the US Air Force, and what they're doing is paying us to study the feasibility of this kind of a product to determine how well their pilots are doing and their whole flight crews before they get on a plane. Of course, what the US Air Force did is they didn't make it mandatory, they made it optional, so we run into the participation problem. And they're actually happy with the numbers we got, although when I look at the numbers, they're just way too low. Because they say, we never get anybody to participate. So you got some people, that's awesome. We'll give you more money, hopefully. And so if you think about people, I think where the market is, we don't have product market fit, we don't have customers, we have the Air Force. I think where the product is going to go is it's going to be people who are in high stress, high impact roles, because a pilot, a nurse, a surgeon are more likely to be, hey, you have to do this as part of our insurance, or it's part of our program, or just do the check-in, more to mandate it than somebody who's not. So I don't think it's like a regular business or a software company.
I like where you're going with that, because for me it fits, and it provides this extra, like, this protective layer of liability, so that it's not all on the individual or on the organization, but that does then put a lot of liability on the product, right? To make sure that it's
Yes.
performing accurately. But
Yeah.
Are you going to be like doing these like white labeled sandbox deployments for like Air Force can have their own, they can deal with it themselves, they have their own data?
We have so many different ideas. We have one group that we're working with that wants to do it as an embedded system into their therapy tracking system, where it's a whole set of office of therapists. I don't know what they call that, but a whole bunch of therapy offices all owned by the same organization. and they would have put it in to track their patients. Because people who go see a psychologist or psychiatrist will often get an appointment every 60 days, 90 days. And so if you go talk to somebody for half an hour every 90 days, wouldn't it be helpful to get data points kind of along the way? So I think a problem is there's too many markets, but nobody is really ready to jump in and do it. So let's see, where was I going with that? So yes, they would want more of a white label thing that integrates in with their own patient tracking system. So when you go on the health portal, you do it and it's white label for them. The Air Force wants, they may want it white label eventually, but they're looking at SaaS for now. Yeah, it'd probably be GovCloud, but same idea, same idea. Yes?
If it's like for like those high risk factor people, and the insurance company is pushing it, would that cause a kind of problem where like the insurance companies are watching the drivers at all times, and then the drivers have less drivers because they're tired of being watched?
It's the same slide as before, the cognitive dissonance, because I think truck drivers should be tracked so that when I'm on the road, I'm safe. Truck drivers, do you want to be tracked? No, 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 no. So I think that's kind of the core issue. So yeah, I think that's a great example. Yeah?
You mentioned before that it would take like 3 minutes for all the data to process, and what happens at the end of that?
That's a great question. So we're trying to build some utility for the consumer as well as for the organization. And so for the consumer, what they're going to do is they're going to see what their scores are. We can look at history of their score, but your mental health score is a 39. You're going to be like, so what? And so what we want to do is think a little bit more about the benefit and what kind of tools we can help give you if your score goes too low, or if you're talking about some dangerous topics, maybe we're going to recommend a therapist. So we're trying to build in the guardrails and build in utility for an individual user. The Air Force likes checklists. They would love to have here's your weekly mental health checklist. 8 hours of sleep, take a break, go for a walk, get your exercise. And those would show up as a checklist for the user. They can kind of check those off, do their check-ins. We could build that as a system. Do we still have time? Oh, 22 seconds. Hey, I can go to the bar after and talk about all of this stuff. I will talk about these things all day long, but I think there's time for one more question.
One thing, take a look at Cisco. I know they're doing some pretty interesting things. They're giving like these systems which are highly regulated for employees. So Cisco definitely does have a solution that's kind of similar. So
That's cool. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you.
Cisco, the our company, or the food company?
Cisco, the tech.
She's from Silicon Valley, so you can guess which one it is. All right, well, thank you, everybody. I hope you thought it was interesting and thought-provoking.